Good morning. It's Thursday morning, and I'm about to head out to the NGS Conference.
And this is the vendor area.
So after lunch, we took a walk through the vendors area of the conference, and while we were walking through there, I was looking at some new software, and I ended up buying Roots Magic. I don't like the way the sourcing works on the software I'm currently using, and that is actually means I have not entered any new data into my database for more than 2 years, just because I hate doing it so much. So I'm excited to try this new one. The way it sources seems to be much better, and I'm anxious to try it, and we'll see how that goes. Hey y'all, I'm done for the day, and if you're wondering why you keep getting all of these shots of me just talking about the events from the motel room at night, the reason is we're not allowed to film during the conference itself. The speakers are putting on copyrighted material, and we just need to be respectful of their copyright and not film in there. We're not allowed to do it. Legally, I could probably grab a snippet here or there, but the rule is you're not supposed to do it, and I'm just not going to do it. So what you're mostly getting on these videos for the rest of the conference is going to be me telling you what I did at the different things during the day, some of my impressions of them. That's what yesterday was like, and that's what today is going to be like too. So there was a total of 6 sessions today. Made for a really long day. The first one was When the Trail Runs Cold by Diane Florence Gravel. She talked about different possible sources to look in if you're not having any luck finding your ancestor. She mostly talked about different record types to go back through and look at again and see what you could find. It was an interesting presentation. My second session today was about the records of the federal courts, and it was put on by John Philip Coletta. And if you've ever had the opportunity to hear him speak, then you know what that was like. He's very lively, very energetic, and extremely knowledgeable, and very good at imparting that knowledge to the audience. I enjoyed it. It was a nearly full house. So it got a little hot in there towards the end, but it was time well spent, and I learned a lot. My third session today was framing the problem of overseas research, and the speaker was David Rencher. I heard him speak on yesterday, and I'd heard him speak prior to that, and I really enjoy listening to him talk. He brings a very good perspective to these things and has a lot of good insights. He talked about how our preconceptions tend to frame us in, and how we need to look at things maybe through different eyes. In a lot of ways, the way he was talking today, he reminded me a lot of the late Ellie Goldratt, just in terms of how we tend to get stuck in the way which we do things without really thinking about it, and sometimes fresh eyes, a fresh look, and a change in our perspective will give us much better results. My first session this afternoon was using evidence creatively, and the speaker was Elizabeth Shown Mills. And I'd heard she was a great speaker, and everything I heard was met or exceeding my expectations of it. The room was literally packed. There were probably more than 300 people in the room. They had to close the doors because there was no space for anybody else in the room, and I assume they must have hit some occupancy limit for the fire code or something, but they closed the room. They wouldn't even let people stand up every seat in the House was taken. She talked about, as I said, using evidence creatively, and she said that didn't mean we get to be creative with our evidence, but we need to look at it different ways, and she gave some great examples. It was a pretty amazing speech. My fifth session today, and the last one in the afternoon, was with James Beidler, and he talked about the contrasting the German migrations, and it was the difference between the Germans that came to the U.S. in the 18th century versus the ones that came in the 19th century. One interesting point that he made is, although way fewer people came in the earlier years, since they had been here for a number of years, the descendants of the two populations are about equal in number. And there are a number of significant differences between the two groups, and it was kind of interesting to hear about them. So Joyce and Scott and I were going to go out for soul food tonight. The driver of the van had recommended a restaurant, and then there proceeded to be this comedy of errors. First, apparently Scott left his iPad in one of the meetings earlier during the day, and he had to go back and try to find it, so he ended up not going. So we took the shuttle over to this restaurant. We got in, there was an hour wait, and we only had an hour and about 40 minutes to eat and get back and get situated for the evening program tonight. So we asked what other restaurants might be around. They directed us to a place called Terrence. There were a couple ladies from Texas who walked in right after us and came to the same conclusion. So we all walked over to Terrence and had supper there. It was really good, very filling, and I kind of didn't want to vlog there. It was kind of crowded. We were in a smallish booth, and I'd never met these ladies before. I didn't want to freak them out by hauling out the camera and starting to talk or to vlog or try to get them in it or anything like that, so I just let it be. Turned out it was real close to the hotel, so we just walked back. And then the final program tonight was put on by Judy Russell. She's also known as the legal genealogist. She's got a blog by that name. It's worth reading. And she talked about the shootout at the Rhododendron Lodge. It was a murder that took place in Bath County, Virginia in 1929. And she basically traced the lives of the participants through a bunch of different records and kind of used it as a way to talk about the genealogical proof standard. So it was kind of a backdoor approach to actually learning something about how to use the proof standard. She also talked about genealogical ethics, since potentially there could have been living people and she wouldn't have wanted to use anything about them, and how she had to get permission from some of the survivors of these people to use information that they had provided her. So it was a really good talk, and a nice way to wrap up the day. She's a great storyteller, and now we're back in the motel and I am ready to call it a night.